ecosystem.
No, Ganesh is wearing a coat, I'm not.
No, actually,
But I
founders
want to
should
take
be
objection.
losing weight.
I'm also a
VCs
founder.
are sitting on a lot of money.
No, I'm
which
a
they are
founder
not
of a
giving.
VC fund, so I'm also an entrepreneur.
No, but great to have all of you on stage, and it's so heartening to see a full house in Bengaluru. We were very worried about the weather. We were worried about the PM's roadshow. We were worried about the location, but touch wood, so far so good. So I'm going to give the founders the first word. Do you all care about elections in the state? Do you all only care about funding? Are you following any of the commentary around elections at all? Or are you just like Series A, Series B, unicorn, sunicorn? Chaitra, go first.
So one of the first thing I remember being excited for as I was turning 18 was the fact that I'll get to vote. So of course I'm excited about the elections. I've been a political enthusiast for many years. And Karnataka has been a very interesting state. So, so the short answer is yes.
What about your employees? Are they going to vote?
You know, yes. In fact, one of my first hires, his name is Sai Madhusudan, and he alerted me to this. So he's from Tamil Nadu, and every election he takes leave and he goes to his home constituency and he volunteers over there.
That's
So,
very heartening
yes.
to hear. Vivek, do you follow politics? Do you follow what's happening every day with respect to the issues being discussed?
We all vote, and we really care about which government comes in, and it's going to play a very important role in everything, right? It's a very macro thing, which can have impact on every startup, the funding environment, to everything. So we all take elections very seriously, and we push people to go out and vote. So, yeah.
Interestingly, BJP and Congress in their manifestos this time have announced a startup fund. So if Sanjay and Ganesh don't give you money, you can count on the BJP Congress to help.
I don't think those funds are usually for this kind of investments, but yeah.
But, top of mind, what are the main issues you think that entrepreneurs really worry about when it comes to a state election? And, as Meghna said, Bengaluru is the startup capital of the country, though Delhi might dispute that sometimes. But we are home to, I think, 42 unicorns and over 5,000 startups. So what do entrepreneurs care about when it comes to Bengaluru?
I think the biggest thing is, can we talk to the concern in the government when we have a problem? So usually all of this is seen as a black box, and if anything, you need help or you need clarity. Most of the times it's clarity, not even help. You're usually in a black box, and then you start calling people you think might know someone to get an audience, right? So I think first and foremost, irrespective of which party comes in, if they're really worried about making a dent or impact for startups, I think it's about how can they talk to startups and what kind of communication channels can be built in. I think that can take everything for a very long way.
Otherwise, you have some random geo and everybody is wondering, where is this coming from?
Yeah.
Chaitra?
I think, unlike Vivek's business, which gets affected by state policy on transportation and stuff, I'm lucky to be in a field which largely gets affected by SEBI or RBI, right? So it's more centrally, the jurisdiction is more central in that sense. And in Bangalore, honestly, as a startup founder, what I care about the most is infrastructure. I would love to see infrastructure development happen at 10x the speed that it's happening right now. And I don't know which political party delivers it. I honestly don't care. But I think Bangalore needs that. That's probably our, getting people, right, mobility within Bangalore to go to one meeting, from one meeting to another, even if it's 2 kilometers away, it takes 32 minutes to an hour of my time. So that's really the biggest concern. Other than that, I think just in general, in terms of startup schemes, etc., we keep hearing that, there is this scheme, that scheme, but there is no way of knowing how to even avail it. And even the process of availing a particular scheme seems like, not worth the ROI on time and effort, especially if you're beyond a certain stage as a startup, right? And I'm not even talking about Series A or anything. So we are a seed stage startup. So even for us, to avail something, it seems by popular consensus talking to people that it's so much effort that, the 50 lakhs that you get is probably not going to be worth it at our stage.
Right, right. Ganesh? What issues do you care about as an investor, as an serial entrepreneur?
Yeah, so, see, firstly, I mean, I'm primarily entrepreneur and promoter. Not
That's what all investors like to call themselves.
No, we raise money from people like Sanjay. We just did once. No, I think, see, firstly, I think, I must say, I've spent 25 years in Bangalore now. My first startup, which I did, was in Delhi. After that, all the other startups in Bangalore. The good part is, across these 25 years, across different parties, including coalition government, one part or the other, Bangalore has been extremely startup-friendly support ecosystem. Okay, right? I must also clarify that over the years, even at the rest of the country also, the startup ecosystem has become more easy to do startups and entrepreneurship. So very clearly that it is, I'm extremely grateful and happy that despite politics, despite changes in parties, we seem to have done a very good job of supporting startups. Having said that, there is, entrepreneurs, we always sleep like a baby, okay? Which basically means we get up in the night every 2 hours and cry, okay, right? So therefore it's very normal for us to cry and to expect more. Clearly, government's job, first and foremost job, is to provide infrastructure. And again, I'm not talking about any specific party. Today we get up, as an entrepreneur gets up, first worry is, will you have electricity? Will you have water? If you have both, would you get a car or a taxi or a two-wheeler to be able to get where you want to go? Even if you get it, after that, if you have to, God forbid, navigate Ijipura or Silk Board or Belandur, you're gone. Okay, right? You're gone as in this. So I think first and simplest thing is make this city livable. Okay, fundamental one. Because then a lot of it will come. Because government job first is infrastructure. Okay, right? Fortunately, on the digital infrastructure side, we have had great developments thanks to Geo, thanks to ONDC, thanks to digital public goods, huge amount of UPI, the amount of leapfrogging we have done on the digital infrastructure. Okay, right? Yeah, for digital payments, you take it, it's an envy of the world. So fortunately, one of the lowest data bandwidth costs in the world. So there are a lot of enabling on the digital side that has already happened, which is great for startup ecosystem. For us to build an inclusive thing, not just a monopoly of few large companies like Amazon, Flipkarts or BigBaskets of the world, where we can get SMEs to come in and actually participate courtesy the digital infrastructure. For me, basically, if I can provide me simple roads, good water, clear the garbage in time, I think government would have done 80% of the job. One. Second, I also think government, we are very under-leveraging government as a consumer or as a user for startup. We have tried on our startups, less than 1% of the revenue comes from government, whereas it can actually be 30 to 40% because of the size and scale of government. Some of the transparency, she mentioned about how to access it, to be able to do that would go a long way. Because employment generation has to come from startups, right? You can't create out of anywhere else. So if you are able to somehow get the government to come in, one is infrastructure, two, really utilize services of startups, okay, right? I think we would have achieved. That would be my...
Right, so infrastructure clearly top of mind, which is why we have a dedicated panel to discuss Bengaluru's urban mess next. So infra is one and government is the consumer. Sanjay, I think you have strong views on this, but would you like to weigh in on the infra side? I think you live in the outskirts of Bengaluru, right? Whitefield.
Yeah, Ganesh didn't recognize me because he's never come and visited me in Whitefield. Chaitra, we missed out funding her because she said, I'm not going to cross Marathalli Bridge to come and meet you. And, I just got to meet...
You should live in Bengaluru. You can't live in
I'm a Kannadiga, by the way. Studied in UVC, St. Joseph's and stuff like that. But, look, the physical infrastructure, it is what it is. To me, it's an important thing beyond the startup ecosystem. So I'm not going to weigh in on that. I'm, trusting that whichever government comes in recognizes that that's a core thing they have to address in order to a good part of their charter. And all the promises in the world, are not going to matter right now. I think we'll just have to see. It's not something that can be fixed overnight. To the extent that people in our ecosystem can help facilitate addressing some of these issues, always happy to put up our hands, but it's not fundamentally something that I expect in the near term is going to move the needle for the startup ecosystem, right? Just something we all have to do as citizens of Karnataka and of Bangalore. So I want to elaborate a bit on what Ganesh said, right? I mean, if there's one thing I want to see here, I'm really disappointed that we are sitting, I had a small part to play in the early days of the Aadhaar program and subsequently on UPI and stuff. All of this was defined 5 kilometers from here, right? And honestly, our adoption of Aadhaar and of India Stack and of UPI, of e-signature, of this, it's nothing, right? We are treating Aadhaar like a physical ID. We still take photocopies of Aadhaar and have people sign sideways and upside down, what have you. That's not what it was meant to be. We have an opportunity in this state, sitting here right here in Bangalore, to really showcase how a digital economy and a digital infrastructure has to be deployed. Government has to be the number one customer of this.
But
and
don't
believe
you think
me,
the government is
everybody from the
enabling
startup
digital
ecosystem
in many of its services?
Well,
at the central level and at the state level. I mean, DigiLocker has taken off, UPI has taken off, we now have ONDC. So when you say government has to consume...
a lot of this is in very, very early stages. But the first mindset has been convert physical to digital and sort of, literally it's like scanning a menu of a restaurant, right? A true digital experience is very, very different. I can see Ashwin smiling here in the front row, right? We have discussed this a few times. The thing is, the startup ecosystem has the ability and the expertise to truly help the government solve the problems that the government needs to solve, right? We are seeing here, coming and asking for what we want from the government. The only thing we want from the government is an opportunity to play a role in serving the citizens of this state, right? And I think any startup ecosystem, whether it's in the EV space, whether it's in the commerce space, mobility, whether it's in banking space, Chaitra is solving problems to bring women into the financial ecosystem, right? Financial inclusion. That's a core priority sector mandate, whether it's in the finance ministry, whether it's in the government, whether it's in the state government. Startups are the ones solving these problems, right? If government starts collaborating with the startups, we don't need any SOPs, right? We just need government to give us an opportunity and a platform to showcase what can be done. And a lot of it happened during COVID. Right, one of our companies, MyGate, built the pass for this. They worked for 96 hours non-stop and built that system, right? A lot of companies have provided healthcare services, have provided new age expertise. So the expertise is there, and I think we're missing, it's like ships passing in the dark, we're missing this golden opportunity to, and as Ganesh said, right, startups, 1% or 2% of our revenues from government. In most countries, it should be 30%. So it's an absolute win-win, right? If a government came in and said, if it's a Karnataka-based startup, we are going to provide a platform for you to try out all your services maybe in a sandbox initially and subsequently to scale it up. I think every startup would come and incorporate in Karnataka.
No,
But I'll tell you the challenge with, depending on government for revenues. And, the IT industry has had a terrible experience with it. They say that, we do great landmark projects for the government, but when it comes to payments, we have to struggle. It's not the same as working for the private sector. So is
Chandra,
it really
I'm
a bright
assuming,
idea to, seek the government as your customer when you don't have clarity on whether your money will come through?
I'm assuming here that the government will figure out the right way to work with all its partners, not vendors, right? And partner together to solve the problems that we have to solve together in this country, right? And as a part of that, yes, there has to be fair value exchange. Startups can do pilots perhaps for free, but it ultimately has to lead to fair compensation and in a structured manner. And that will be part of the solution that has to be done. It's not just the platform, but it's also part of give and take.
See, there is already a preferential market access mechanism policy that the government has come up with. Now the question is that, so the intent is there, the government understands it, they see the need. many of these problems, including infrastructure problem, can be solved if you involve startup and to be able to solve it. The question is, we have to really get down to translating it so that she is able to actually participate and get that. Obviously, it should not be based on only price, level 1. Okay. It can't take 6 months, 9 months to evaluate. 3, payments is a very, very, very major challenge with government, and we have also suffered in our startups with the payment delays that take place. All of that need to be comprehensively addressed. The good part is the appreciation is there. The bad part is we have to see actually in the result at the end of the day.
Got it.
Can I add 2 points
Chaitra,
to this
go
one?
ahead. Yeah.
I think building on what both Sanjay and Ganesh are saying, one of the core things that we do, and where we have found resonance with a lot of people that we talk to, is this whole, so we do financial wellness, right? Personal finance management. There is an entire generation of government employees who are going to be retiring without pensions, without retirals. Now, there is a massive opportunity that fintech players can work with them to help them manage their post-retirement money situations. If there is a scope for that, we would love to work with the government, right? That's one thing. Second, which is a completely unrelated thing, I didn't bring it up earlier because I thought that the purview of this discussion is state government, but whether it's state or central, this whole digital India thing that Sanjay was talking about, the last mile of delivery has just not happened. The amount of time that I, as a founder, we are 3 co-founders. Each one of us spends in putting seal and stamp and signature on document after document after document. It is just mind-blowingly insane. And the amount of money we pay to Dunzo, courier services, delivery, it's
At least you're
crazy.
helping another startup, Chaitra. So
Sure. But I'm a seed stage company. No, I mean, it's the time and the effort. Like, we've had to hire a person just for this. And in the first few years as a company, right, there is hardly, like, if there can be some relaxation made around this whole, the need to have a company secretary and a chartered accountant. Like, we would have saved lakhs of rupees. We could have increased
that
our
is a separate
runway by
nightmare on
6
its own. Or
you
on
don't
its
have
own
a
this-
CA and taxation.
Yeah.
Few years down the line, it might turn into.
No, I think like what Sanjay mentioned, whether it is M-Aadhaar initiative that can come up, or facial recognition to be able to do that, or digitally verifiable documents so that you don't have to put seal, signature, and everything. So when you sign 300 pages every page, nobody is going to check the authenticity of the signature. But everybody goes through the same motion to be able to.
Right.
And oh, by the way, a tree gives you 80,000 sheets of paper. You take that 300, before you know it, every day we are consuming tree after tree after tree, and then we are complaining about how hot it is, we don't have water, we need to solve our environmental problems,
Sanjay,
etc.
the
These
new
are all
initiatives-
intertwined.
Is the new initiatives happening on M-Aadhaar, or you know this better because you have been one of the core team members. Is that happening? What she's asking for, will it happen that you have a digitally verifiable thing which is automatically gets done? Is that
No, what I'm saying is we have built the infrastructure. You mentioned earlier, it's the envy of the world. People are coming, governments are coming from all over saying, how do we deploy this in our country? We define this whole thing here, and we are
not
barely using it.
Vivek, is that a top of mind issue for you?
On the last mile
Yeah,
around digital. Yeah, I think so.
But I don't think this is something that a state government can solve
Yeah,
for.
probably. I think there are a few things definitely state government can also step in and say that, okay, like Sanjay was mentioning, probably no photocopy of another, right? As in, which is already digital, etc. But I think there are far more problems, mostly around what Ganesh was saying, making the city livable. Otherwise, it becomes almost impossible, right? We all know that if the way this continues, probably 5 or 10 years, this won't be the most hottest place for startups or anything of that sort, right? So, infrastructure is first, then comes a lot of the other things. Yeah.
Right. I also wanted to get your thoughts when we are talking ease of doing business. One thing that comes within the ambit of the state is, how they treat ride aggregators. And I think it's been a nightmare for the likes of Rapido and the others. Yeah. What can the government do better? Or is this a problem across states? Because regulation usually kind of follows innovation.
So I'll tell you a very quick story on how we started. We wanted to rent motorcycles back in 2014. It took us 2 years to get a proper license. While there is an act where there's a rule on how it has to be done, etc., to just get them to execute this, It took us 2 years, and not just 2 years. We went to Rajasthan. Jaipur government welcomed us, as in Jaipur welcomed us to do rentals. Then probably we used one of the medias to say that Bangalore-based startup is going to start in Jaipur first. Then we got a call from Transport Department saying that we will also give this.
So the media helped you in this.
Yeah. In one of its instances, it did help.
One of the rare instances.
I think it was Moneycontrol or something. Right?
No, but
Thank you.
But going back to this point, right? So, see, we were talking about transportation. Ganesh was saying that how can, if I get into a car or anything of that sort, how can I get to a particular destination within a particular point of time, right? So it's just not about making roads or flyovers or that's not the solution, right? As in just great roads won't solve problem. You'll have great roads, but you'll be stuck in traffic. So we're talking about public transport. If the second you talk about public transport takes time for it to cover the whole of city. Then first mile, last mile becomes very key. And government can't, at least today government is not solving first mile, last mile. That's where startups came in. As in like us, we were solving for first mile, last mile, where 30% of the rides were starting for us in a metro station, either going to first mile or last mile. But we had to really fight for getting space at near a metro station, right? The only thing we wanted was integrated public transport where there is space for the first mile and last mile operators to park their vehicles. That's it, right? But it was not easy, right? It was not planned for, and it was auctioned at crazy prices. We paid. So thanks for our funding and other things, we were able to pay for it. But so these are the problems we're talking about, right? When we talk about how can government make city livable, startups can actually come up with very innovative ways of solving this. All they need is some kind of
in regulation.
Yeah, most of the times facilitate or cooperate and don't stop it, right? So today, most of the times you just ban, right? As in you just stop overnight. You see that okay, this has to be stopped. Probably a dialogue would be helpful to clearly understand what are the motives, what are the problems that government is looking at, why do they want to ban this, to everything, right? So most of the times, at least in mobility and transport, what we see is most of the shocks come in, right? As in, and always everyone is on edge. As in, you would think of bike taxi or anyone is always on the edge. But I think all of these startups can play a very important role in solving for first mile, last mile, or enabling public transport, or working closely with the government. So a more planned approach where startups and the government can actually sort out a plan would be super helpful, as in integrating. So we're talking about digital. So today, why doesn't someone take a bus? Because there is no idea, and you have no idea on when a bus is going to come from somewhere to somewhere. Recently, we are seeing some Google integrations, but it's a very simple data point that you can solve for, right? IoT in a bus. Some startup would be happy to push this and can also integrate with first mile, last mile, etc. All of that, right? So a lot of magic can happen if governments and startups can actually work together on solving very important issues like infrastructure, transportation, mobility, and also removing a lot of personal vehicles from off the road, right? Because you make great roads, great flyovers, and then you'll have a lot of traffic, but Ganesh will still be stuck on the road, right? So he still can't cross Silk Board or Bengaluru Junction unless we solve on this aspect of thinking and solving together.
So Chandra, actually during the Aadhaar days, right, we did a hackathon with the Rajasthan government. And the first prize was a 25 lakh rupee contract to deploy your solution with the government, right? So it was not a question of saying, okay, yours is the best product, but actually we will see it run at scale and in action, right? Yeah. And I think that's the thing where we can certainly collaborate between the startup ecosystem and the government and actually address the issues that the government wants and needs to see addressed.
Right. Ganesh, last year, I think when the floods happened, we saw all these millionaire bungalows and all go down and, that Divyashri and, I don't know, unicorn founders were traveling on bullock carts or something like that. So, tractors. So, there was some noise then that, will Bengaluru continue to be India's Silicon Valley? And then, founders from Delhi NCR started making noise. Mumbai has been making a lot of noise in the last 6 months. They've formed their own association. Do you think Bengaluru has what it takes to still be the startup capital of the country? If yes, why? If no, why?
Yeah, I think absolutely Bangalore has got in it. It's not, people are not going to go away to Delhi or any other place. That is not the issue at all.
I think, like Ganesh said, we'll all cry, but we'll be here.
Okay, right? But no, the point is not that. I'm not even comparing with Delhi and Mumbai. Delhi and Mumbai are like brothers. It's like saying I got more marks than my brother, so I go and celebrate. I mean, that doesn't make me happy. Okay, right? So, by any standards, whether it is the fifth largest ecosystem in the startup ecosystem, startup city in the world, or India Innovation Index of Niti Aayog rating Bangalore as number one. We have many number ones. Okay, right? Now we have talked about all the challenges that exist. Bengaluru, it's crazy. I mean, I've never seen where in a developed world you will go underwater and you will use boats to be able to do it in a million things. I mean, all that is very sad. But I don't think we are going to lose our spot. There are enough very strong things going for Bangalore, and including government across parties are doing. If you take, for example, the AI Research Center. The first AI Research Center, Art Camp at IISc is in Bangalore. One of the very first initiatives. We are the second largest AI population for a city in Bangalore. So whether it's ChatGPT, regenerative AI, whatever you want to create center of excellence, the opportunity is in Bangalore. You are not going to get that in Delhi and Bombay. It is here that we are going to do it. But we have to really work. Or take C-Camp, for example. So the number of initiatives that we have with central government and state government and the funding that is there, the talent that we have here, our ability to create the centers of excellence and actually marry startup, IP, commercial asset, all of it is unprecedented. Okay, right? We owe it to ourselves, all of us, that we actually utilize it and translate it. And just not bothered about Delhi, Mumbai and all of that stuff. If they do well, good for them. I will actually compliment and support and do everything required to be able to lend them to be able to go. It's like just you're helping your sister or brother do better than you in your life. Okay, right? That's not the competition at all. But we have to really get down to solving. And from Bengaluru to Ijipura flyover, I don't know, last 10 years I've been seeing it being built. Okay, right? You can't have a situation
this is that
where
Stonehenge.
yeah. So you can't have a situation where you say, I will do Chandrayaan, I will do cutting edge research, I am fifth largest in the world, and my flat will get to my villa will be underwater, or one particular thing to connect two of the startups' biggest areas, Indiranagar and Koramangala Club. 8 years it is still going on, and you are talking about bullet train. I mean, somewhere across parties, cutting across people, including startup, you have to say, man, this is ridiculous to have this kind of infrastructure and keep on talking about it that is there. That I think we need to do. But we are not going to lose it because so many good things are going for us. The talent, the weather, the culture, the IASC, and actual funding that has gone in. Now, 250 crores, 300 crores gone into Art Camp from central government and state government. Yeah. So the intent is there. So enough and more money is there, and people are doing it. And including private sector funds, people like Chris Gopalakrishnan and others have donated to various centers of excellence. So all of that is happening. So but we really need to get together to solve it.
Right. Sanjay, moving from between Bengaluru, Mumbai, Delhi, how are we going to grow this startup ecosystem beyond Bengaluru? I mean, beyond Bengaluru has been a big, theme. Now you have the Bengaluru-Mysuru Expressway. But, do you see that happening, or are we going to be in Bengaluru because this is the talent hub and tech talent is here and so on?
Yeah, so I think, by the way, we invest across the country, right? So I don't mind if it's Delhi or Mumbai. I would love for it to be Bangalore as the key hub here.
You have to show some loyalty.
Right? Yeah. So, I have my loyalty to the opportunity. But to answer your question, right, I think there will be pockets here, right? For example, Udupi has this huge pocket of gaming because of RoboSoft and things like that, right? But if I was to look at it as an entrepreneur, and as an entrepreneur, I can't take a chance on my own startup, right? So in some ways, why would I want to take a chance, right? So the most important ingredient for startup success is people, right? And as it is, it's hard enough convincing somebody to leave this, high-paying job from a Ganesh startup and come and work at a, seed-funded startup that we have recently backed. In addition, if I say, okay, and you got to move from something to some other city and stuff like that, it's impossible, right? So I think entrepreneurs need to always look at de-risking at all times. And so in many cases, it will end up being that regardless of what the cost of people is and things like that, first thing is there has to be access to the talent, right? And I think Bangalore has got that in droves, right? Now, there are others coming after us with a lot of other, like if I look at how Telangana markets itself, etc.
Yeah.
So, unlike Ganesh, I am concerned that we are going to lose our edge over a period of time if we don't address the fundamental issue of saying you should be able to reach your office, right? If you do the math here, if everybody is losing 2 hours a day, reaching their offices, which should have been 15 minutes each way, at some point people will get frustrated, right? What has worked well, inadvertently, ironically due to COVID, is people have gotten used to this work from anywhere, do 3 days in the office or 2 days in the office and the rest from home, etc. So that has helped a little bit, but we have to address these physical infrastructure issues very
I have
shortly.
a slight different addition to this. The Beyond Bengaluru initiative of creating clusters, whether it's the coastal cluster in Mangalore area, or South Karnataka cluster, or North Karnataka cluster, Hubli, Dharwad, or Mysore. I think that is one good solution even to solve some of the problems. But like Sanjay said, we have to create social infrastructure there. Yeah. You can't just have only IT companies there or gaming companies there, but not have jobs for the spouses, not for good education and all of that stuff. But I think starting Beyond Bengaluru initiative...
Third Wave Coffee also has to set up. Sorry? I said Third Wave Coffee also
Third Wave Coffee has to set up. No, the initiatives of Beyond Bengaluru and these 3 clusters, I think should help us to be able to do that. But again, it's in thought, it's an idea, it's in that. But we need to really put social infrastructure also there so that people are able to actually move. Right. Sorry to
Chandra, one small point on that, is also things like manufacturing, for example, right? IoT is becoming such a core part of it. This, so there could be areas of expertise in these clusters, which can make maybe the companies based in Bangalore, but there's a lot of employment creation for startups in these smaller towns as well.
Right. Chaitra, if I look at the previous generation of entrepreneurs in Bengaluru, right, and all of them are like first-time billionaires and millionaires, whether it's the founders of Infosys, Biocons, Kiran, and others, they've been more engaged in civil society, in, giving back to Bengaluru, whether it's being part of, committees with the government, whether it's, setting up centers. But we don't see that happening much with the current generation of founders. And I don't mean startups, but even those who are slightly more established. I mean, they are happy to complain on Twitter, but are they actually doing something on the ground? Why are they not as engaged as the previous generation of Bengaluru's entrepreneurs and CXOs and executives? And there are many here in the room as well.
I think I partly disagree with this statement. And the reason I disagree with it, but I partly agree also, right? And let me touch upon the part that I agree.
You
I think
have
the first
to disagree because your entrepreneur friends might take offense.
No. I'll substantiate it. I've seen the contributions happen firsthand, but them not reaching the last mile or the full delivery, right? But the first generation of entrepreneurs, like the Infosys, the Biocons of the world, I think they are a different generation. They are more in tune with, they know how to deal with the government. They seem to know how to deal with the bureaucracy. Honestly, we don't. I mean, Vivek, correct me if I'm wrong. I have no experience dealing with the government. I have no experience dealing with the bureaucracy. So I don't know how to participate. Partly it's a little bit of a knowledge problem. But where it got bridged and breached, right, was during the early days of COVID. Me, my husband, a bunch of my entrepreneur friends, like practically every entrepreneur friend that I knew, was working harder than we had worked during our, I was transitioning between startups. I had left Simple and I was just before it started Salt, so I had free time. And I was working 16, 18-hour days volunteering for COVID during that time. But where the initiative stopped and where I dropped off, where I saw a lot of people dropping off, was when these projects, things were being built, like digital services were being built. But when they reached the last mile, somehow the lobby took over. There is a lobby that knows how to work with the government. There is a lobby that knows how to win government contracts. So when these projects reached that point, the lobbies came in and they took over, and everybody who participated sincerely, not just founders, but even employees, right, engineers, they got so disheartened, and it was heartbreaking for me to watch their work go to nothing after 2-3 months of intense hard work and effort, because then suddenly the service providers ended up being the ones who had always been they had always delivered to the government. So I feel somewhere this generation is less tolerant towards those inefficiencies. And once you get, disappointed at that level after putting in so much effort, then obviously there is a barrier to go back.
Got it. Very, very interesting points. I'd love to extend this session, but I'm afraid we're, out of time. But a huge round of applause for Vivek, Ganesh, Sanjay and Chaitra. Very pertinent points on